About 35 years ago, a wonderful textile and felt artist, Judith, invented her own unique way of making these beautiful, delicate roses. Now, Judith has given me her notes. Is it possible for me to use these notes and make a rose of my own? Will I get it right? Let's see if I can. We're going to need some wool, not too much, there's enough here for about 5 roses. One of these metal tubes, a thin plastic shopping bag, some scissors, some rubber bands, some sort of skewer that has a pointy end, foot off an old stocking, some dishwashing detergent, a shaker, has to be big enough to take the metal tube, that's all. A little bit of PVA glue. First, let's prepare the wool. We want the wool to be as light and airy as possible. So I'm going to tease it out. Here I'm using a dog comb. You can also just get stuck in with your fingers. This technique I'm using here is what we'll use to lay down our roses. This is the wool top, the red wool top. I'm just separating it out with my hands. And again, that's fine now. Let's prepare the plastic bag. We call it a resist. First of all, cut off the bottom of the bag. Spread it out, smooth it out. Measure up one side of the bag, the length of the metal tube, and cut it, only on one side of the bag though. When you've done that, fold the bag in half. Smooth it out again. Once more, using the metal tube, we're going to cut a strip off the bottom of the bag that is as high as that metal tube. This is a very rough measurement. That's why I'm doing it so roughly. We end up with a lovely piece that is 15 centimeters by 98 centimeters. We're going to add a tiny amount of dishwashing liquid. I suggest you use much less than I have here. We only put it on one half of the bag, fold the strip again in half, and we spend some time here smoothing out because we're trying to spread out all of that detergent across the whole strip of the plastic. Now for laying out the rose, about 1 hand span in from the edge, we start to lay down our leaves. You don't have to do leaves, I just like them. I like the contrast of the green and the red as well. You'll notice that I'm putting in some other colours and that I've gone past the edge of the plastic. That's very deliberate, you need to do that. I'm leaving a tiny space between the leaves. Next, I'm laying out some fine wool merino that is white. It gives a good background and helps to act as a contrast for your work. Now comes some pinks. I've got pinks, purples, some oranges that I've kind of mixed together. You might be wondering if there's ever going to be any red in this red rose. There will be. This is very sped up, this process. Really take your time over it and enjoy. It's very meditative. Not all of the wool has to come over the edge, just enough. So now you can see I'm laying out the petals. So next to the leaves comes the outside petals of the rose. You just have to trust me with this, it is going to work. As we come along the strip, you'll see that I'm using a little bit less in height. That's deliberate because they're going to be the center of the rose. And finally, I'm going to add some darks into what will be the inside of the rose. This is to give an impression of a shadow. Now, if this next rose doesn't look like the same rose, you're right, it's not. I made a mistake and wrapped it up from the wrong end. So here we go. Can I get it right this time? Now I'm sprinkling some water on this just to start that wetting process, but you'll notice I didn't touch it. Just sprinkle the water. Keep your hands off. Now we start rolling in. I've left a bit of space at the end as well, you'll see. And I start rolling it in with the end of the tube a bit past the end of the plastic. So all that stuff that is standing out from the bottom, that's going to form the connection of all of the petals. Now we get into the felting. So this fluffy end bit is what is going to hold the whole rose together. It forms the base. You can see the leaves there and the petals. So we're tapping it. First of all, we start very gently when we're felting. Just tapping and stroking. I'm soaking both ends into this glass of water, which is warm and has a little bit of soap in it. Lots more of patting and gently stroking. And see how quickly that wool is starting to love itself and felt. Next, I put it into an old stocking foot and tie a knot. Don't tie the knot too tight so you can use the stocking again. Once more, dipping each end into the water. So same as before, lots of gentle stroking, and this is sped up. Stroking, rolling, agitating, banging it between your hands. Anything that will make it agitate just a little bit. If you're very brave, you could also just make up a couple of these and put them in the washing machine and let that agitate them. So you can do this by hand for about an hour. An hour should get the wool felted, but remember, you've got all these layers you've got to felt through. We don't want this to be over felted. This is not a bag or a pot holder or a pair of shoes. It's something that isn't going to get anywhere. And lastly, when you've had enough of doing that, and perhaps you've left it overnight, that's a really good idea, leaving it overnight. You can give it a little bit more of a rub, a bit more of a stroke. You can sort of see through the stocking how it's starting to felt. And these two roses I have here are one that I did right and one that I did wrong, in that I rolled it up from the wrong end, so the leaves are going to be on the inside. Is this a disaster? Let's wait and see. So I take the shaker, put a little bit of water in. Again, it's warm. I call it baby warm. Safe for a baby, but not cold, not hot, definitely not boiling. If you were to use boiling water, I've done this, the shaker explodes. So don't do that. Put the lid on nice and tight and give it a good shake. You could let this sit around for half a day, and every time you walk past it, just give it a bit more of a shake. Once you've made a few roses, you'll get a really good idea for how long they take to felt. And especially because we don't want them to felt hard, we want them just to be very lightly felted. So the wool has come together to make the petal, but certainly not hard and certainly not thick. These petals are going to be very fine and very thin. So we give it a good shake. Lots and lots of shaking. And that's the end pretty much of part 1. Are you ready to turn this into this? If so, please watch part 2. Thank you so much for watching.